it seems Donald Trump may have a point when he says the liberal media is ganging up on him. The GOP nominee, the subject of way more negative news coverage than Hillary Clinton, according to a new study. Researchers from the Conservative Media Research Center found a whopping 91% of coverage about Trump on the 3 broadcast nightly newscasts since the summer conventions has been, quote, hostile. The group also found that the major networks spent far more airtime focusing on the personal controversies involving Trump than scandals surrounding Clinton. Look at the minutes. Nearly 3 times as much time coverage on Mr. Trump's alleged misdeeds. While on the Kelly File, Trump running mate Mike Pence citing the study as he defended his ticket's criticism of the media.
Rick Hume likes to say, winners take responsibility, losers blame others. To try to blame these numbers entirely on the media being rigged is not real, is it?
Well, I think, I hear that riff a little bit, that pointing out the overwhelming bias in the national media is somehow, making an excuse. I think he's just making an observation. I mean, Media Research Center just came out with a study of media coverage. It showed that since the conventions, I think the number was that Donald Trump had gotten significantly more coverage, and more than 90% of it had been negative.
Guy, you're already about to start talking. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, they're right about that. The media coverage of Trump has been overwhelmingly negative, and the bias against Trump speaks for itself. It's undeniable. I do think it's important to remember, though, not too long ago, this same mainstream media gave Trump about $2 billion worth of free publicity and airtime during the Republican primary, and a Harvard study went through some of the major outlets and the percentage of positive coverage during the primary. CBS News, 66%, New York Times, 63%, Washington Post, 65%. Then he wins the nomination, and surprise, surprise, they turn on him. This was predictable, and it's destructive, and it's hurting him. And this notion that nothing ever affects him, nothing would ever hurt him, some of us argued that wouldn't carry over into the general, and it hasn't.
Well, the Trump campaign is really sticking with this, Julie. Mike Pence went a step further than just slamming the media. He actually went as far as a recent rally calling out an individual reporter for colluding with the Hillary Clinton camp. Watch this.
I mean, it's just amazing. Some of these emails come out, you find out this guy at CNBC named Harwood, he actually, after he moderated a Republican debate, he was communicating with the chairman of Hillary Clinton's campaign about how he'd been vindicated in his tough questioning of Donald Trump. You got this person who was at Politico who, a Clinton operative said that they could do the most shaping if they reached out to her. The shaping of stories. And Vanity Fair just wrote an article touting how the New York Times and the Washington Post brought down Donald Trump.
Julie?
Well, a couple of observations. One is, Guy's absolutely right. The same media is the reason he's the nominee today. You want to talk to Ted Cruz, there's somebody who's probably going ballistic at the thought that the media is now turning on him when, in fact, the media had made him the nominee. All of them, not just Ted Cruz, but all of them. Secondly, look, John Harwood, who I think is a good reporter, is not on the ballot. And they're wasting their time going after the media because all they're doing is preaching to their own choir. Thirdly, and this is a very important point, if they don't want negative stories about themselves, and they're always going to have negative stories, I'm not pretending the media is going to cover him even fairly. Yes, I do think the media has a certain bias. But I also believe that one way to get the media to not cover your sex scandals is to stop proactively bringing them up. And when Donald Trump stands up at a podium and starts talking about suing women when he's supposed to be talking about bringing the country together at Gettysburg, guess what the media is going to focus on? Your sex scandals, because you are proactively... Everybody in the media, all of us brought it up. All of us talked about it. We talked about it on this very couch the other day because of the fact that he goes to Gettysburg. He's supposed to give some overarching speech. That's
yes, this is what you talked about.
And that's what we do.
You're a Democratic guest.
Yeah, and so the problem here is if he doesn't want these sex scandals covered, don't bring him up. Move on, and maybe the media will move on with you. But instead, he's doubling down.
Many of us have moved on to the intense email dump that has come from both the FBI and WikiLeaks. Go ahead.
Some of these journalists that he's pointing out, I do think it's fair to call out people like John Harwood, people in Politico, who are emailing Hillary Clinton's campaign and giving them advice and saying great things about Hillary Clinton. That is, in every conceivable way, political malpractice and should be grounds for firing some of these people. All of that being said, one of my favorite quotes from the movie Primary Colors is, "The media giveth and the media taketh away." And you live by the press, you die by the press. press. And you have to have a message and a candidate and a campaign that is stronger than when the media will inevitably turn on you, as they do all Republican candidates everywhere, because it is a liberal media that we live and die by.
We want to highlight this moment from last night for those of you who didn't see it. A big moment on the Kelly file when Megyn Kelly and Newt Gingrich got into it over the media's coverage of Donald Trump. The former House Speaker slamming the fact that the network spend more time on negative stories about Trump rather than the accusations against Bill and Hillary Clinton. Watch.
My point to you is, as a media story, we don't get to say the 10 women are lying. We have to cover that story, sir.
Sure. Okay, so it's worth 23 minutes of the three networks to cover that story, and Hillary Clinton in a secret speech in Brazil to a bank that pays her $225,000, saying her dream is an open border where 600 million people could come to America. That's not worth covering.
That is worth
when you
covering.
want to go back through the tapes of your show recently, you are fascinated with sex and you don't care about public policy. Well, that's what I get out of watching you tonight.
It didn't end there. Then came this exchange.
Do you want to comment on whether the Clinton ticket has a relationship to a sexual predator?
We, on the Kelly file, have covered that story as well, sir. I will tell you
I just want to hear you use the words. I want to hear your words. Bill Clinton